You were fine yesterday, or at least you thought you were. You showed up. You smiled. You handled everything people threw at you. And then this morning, you can't get out of bed. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't care, but because something inside you has shut down completely. Your body feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. The idea of answering a text message feels impossible. Someone asks if you're okay, and you can't even form words to explain what's happening because you don't understand it yourself. This isn't gradual exhaustion. This isn't "I need a vacation" tiredness. This is a complete system failure that appeared out of nowhere. Except it didn't appear out of nowhere. It's been building for weeks, maybe months. You just didn't see it coming because you're so used to operating on empty that you forgot what full even feels like. People call this burnout, but that word doesn't capture what actually happens to emotionally sensitive people. For you, burnout isn't a slow fade. It's a cliff you walk off without realizing there was an edge. And today, we're going to map out exactly why your nervous system collapses without warning, because you're not fragile. You're not weak. You're someone whose emotional processing system works at a capacity most people can't even imagine. And that gift comes with a cost nobody prepared you for. The empathy overload circuit. Here's what's actually happening in your brain that makes you different from most people. Your mirror neuron system, the part of your brain responsible for empathy, is hyperactive. When someone near you feels something, your brain doesn't just recognize it intellectually. It physically simulates their emotional state in your own body. Neuroscientists call this neural resonance, and for you, it's turned up to maximum volume. When your coworker is stressed, you feel that stress in your chest. When your friend is sad, that sadness sits in your throat. When there's tension in a room, your nervous system absorbs it like a sponge absorbs water. And here's the critical part. This process is involuntary and unconscious. You're not choosing to take on other people's emotions. Your brain is doing it automatically, every single day, in every single interaction. Most people can be around emotional intensity and remain separate from it, but your brain doesn't have that filter. It treats other people's feelings as data that must be processed immediately. So while everyone else is having one emotional experience, you're having yours plus everyone else's. And your nervous system is trying to regulate all of it at once. Do you see now why you're so exhausted? You're not just living your life. You're living everyone's life in proximity to you, and your body was never designed to carry that load indefinitely. The silent accumulation phase. Most people think burnout has warning signs. They imagine you'd feel yourself getting more tired, more irritable, more overwhelmed. But that's not how it works for emotionally sensitive people. You have what psychologists call a high distress tolerance. You've spent your entire life learning to function while carrying massive emotional weight. So you keep going long past the point where others would stop. You keep showing up, keep accommodating, keep absorbing, and your nervous system keeps score in a place you can't consciously access. This is the silent accumulation phase, and it's invisible to you because you've normalized operating at capacity. You think everyone feels this way? You think everyone goes home after work and collapses. You think everyone needs hours alone to recover from social interaction. So when people ask how you are, you say, fine, because by your standards, you are fine. You're still functioning, still meeting your obligations, still smiling when required. What you don't realize is that a fine for you would be a crisis for most people. Your baseline is their emergency, and because you can't see how much you're carrying, you don't know you're approaching the breaking point until you've already gone over the edge. The collapse doesn't feel like the logical conclusion of months of overextension. It feels like a sudden malfunction, like your body betrayed you out of nowhere. But it didn't. It was sending signals the entire time. You just learned a long time ago to ignore them. The nervous system, debt. Let me explain what's happening at the physiological level. Your nervous system operates on a principle called allostatic load. Think of it like a stress bank account. Every emotional experience, every empathetic absorption, every moment of overstimulation is a withdrawal. And every moment of rest, of safety, of genuine peace is a deposit. For most people, their withdrawals and deposits stay relatively balanced. They have stress during the day, they rest at night, and their nervous system recovers. But your account works differently. You're making massive withdrawals all day long, absorbing other people's stress, regulating environments, managing your own emotions plus everyone else's. And here's the problem. You're not making enough deposits to cover it. Maybe you can't fully rest because your brain won't turn off. Maybe you feel guilty taking time for yourself. Maybe your rest time is interrupted by people who need you. So you start running a deficit. Your nervous system goes into debt. And at first, your body compensates. It pulls from reserves you didn't know you had. It keeps you running on stress hormones, on adrenaline, on sheer determination. But those reserves aren't infinite. And when they run out, your body doesn't politely ask for a break. It forces one. It shuts down your motivation, your energy, your ability to care. Not because you're weak, but because continuing to function would cause permanent damage. The burnout isn't a failure. It's a biological emergency brake. The guilt-rest paradox. Here's the cruelest part of this pattern. Even when you hit burnout, even when your body physically cannot continue, you feel guilty for resting. Your brain tells you that you're being lazy, dramatic, weak, that other people have it worse and still manage to function, that you should be able to push through this. This is what I call the guilt-rest paradox, and it's the reason burnout becomes chronic for sensitive people. You finally collapse, and instead of allowing yourself to truly recover, you rest with one eye open. You're physically still, but mentally cataloging everything you're not doing, every message you're not answering, every responsibility you're neglecting, every person you're letting down, so your rest never actually restores you. You're not sleeping, you're just lying in bed, feeling terrible about sleeping. You're not taking a break, you're just taking a break while planning your comeback and feeling ashamed it's necessary. Your nervous system needs deep, guilt-free rest to recover. But you can't give yourself permission for that, because somewhere along the way you learn that your value is tied to your output, that you only deserve rest after you've earned it, that needing a break is something to apologize for. So you try to rest while simultaneously punishing yourself for needing it. And your nervous system gets the message. Even now, we're not safe. Even in rest, we're under threat. And it stays in a state of hypervigilance, never fully dropping into the parasympathetic mode where actual healing happens. Isolation amplification. When you burn out, your first instinct is to isolate. You cancel plans. You stop responding to messages. You withdraw from the people who care about you. And this makes sense because social interaction is one of your biggest drains. Being around people means absorbing their emotions, managing their reactions, performing a version of yourself that's functional and okay. But here's what happens in isolation. The burnout gets worse. Because while you're avoiding the drain of connection, you're also cutting yourself off from one of the few things that could actually help you. Genuine, boundaried connection, where you don't have to perform. Where someone sees you struggling and doesn't need you to fix it or explain it or make it comfortable for them. Psychologists call this the isolation amplification effect. You withdraw to protect your energy, but without connection, your brain starts spiraling. It tells you that you're too much, that you're broken, that everyone's better off without you. These thoughts aren't true, but in isolation, they're loud, and they drain you even further. So you're stuck. Connection exhausts you. Isolation destroys you. And you don't know which one is worse. The truth is, you don't need more connection or more isolation. You need a different connection. You need people who understand that you can't show up the way you normally do, who don't take your silence personally, who can sit with you in the burnout without trying to fix you or making you feel guilty for struggling. But finding those people requires vulnerability. And when you're burned out, vulnerability feels impossible. The recovery protocol. So how do you come back from this? How do you rebuild a nervous system that's been operating in debt for months or years? The first step is non-negotiable rest, and I mean real rest. Not scrolling on your phone, not watching TV while mentally reviewing your to-do list. I mean lying down with no input, no sound, no information, just your body in a safe space doing nothing. Your nervous system needs sensory deprivation to reset. The second step is somatic release. Burnout doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your body. In the tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your chest, the exhaustion in your bones. You need to move that energy out, not with intense exercise, but with gentle movement. Stretching, walking, shaking, crying if it comes. Your body has been holding stress for so long, it doesn't know how to let it go. You have to teach it. The third step is radical boundary enforcement. This is the hardest one because it requires disappointing people. But you have to start saying no. 2 invitations, 2 favors, to emotional labor you don't have capacity for. And you have to say no without explaining or justifying. Because every explanation is another withdrawal from your already overdrawn account. Just, I can't right now. I need to rest. And then you stop talking. You let them be disappointed. You let them think you're selfish. Because their comfort is not more important than your survival. The sustainable sensitivity, here's what I need you to understand. Your sensitivity is not the problem. The problem is that you've been living in a world that demands you function like everyone else, while processing 3 times the emotional data. You've been trying to run a high-performance system on a low-performance energy budget, and it doesn't work. It was never going to work. The burnout isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you've been operating beyond your design limits for too long. And now your body is demanding a renegotiation. You don't need to become less sensitive. You don't need to toughen up or grow thicker skin. You need to build a life that honors the reality of how your nervous system works. That means more rest than other people need, more alone time, more silence, stricter boundaries, fewer commitments, and yes, that might mean disappointing people. It might mean being misunderstood. It might mean being called selfish or dramatic or too much. But here's the truth. You're not too much. You've just been trying to fit into a world designed for people who process less. And that was always going to end in collapse. The version of you that survives, that thrives, is the one who stops apologizing for needing what you need, who stops pushing past empty, who learns to recognize the warning signs before the cliff appears. Your sensitivity is a gift, but only if you're alive and present enough to use it. And that starts with choosing yourself, even when it feels impossible, especially when it feels impossible.